Never underestimate the incredible power of the ocean. As soon as you enter, you're delving into an environment that was never meant for humans. You instantly slide from the top of the food chain to the bottom. But now I've set the scene, hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Of course, I'm Ryan from Tragedy Tales, and in this week's video, we're taking a look at a handful of tragedies that occurred in the sea or in the open water, ranging from a freak wave that swept a couple to certain death, to a terrifying shark attack just off the coast of Egypt. This week, we've got the lot. The tragedies that I'm going to share today are real, and involve real people that tragically lost their lives. I share these stories in the hope that we can learn and avoid a similar tragic fate ourselves. So grab your life jacket and brace yourself for the chilling unknown. Let's dive into 5 tragic tales that remind us exactly why we don't belong in the depths. On the 20th of September 2018, the residents on Yukari Island, a large picturesque island located in Lake Victoria in Tanzania, had no reason whatsoever to suspect that that day would be any different. They were going about their day by day, the sun was beaming down from above, it was paradise. However, that day, a public ferry called the MV Nyairia, capable of ferrying 100 people and cargo around to the various islands in Lake Victoria, arrived at the port for a routine trip. After it filled up with eager passengers, the ferry left Yukari Island, destined for another lake island, Island Yukara, located around 10 kilometers north. As they ferried along Lake Victoria, it went at a snail's pace. This was because it was extremely overloaded. Not only were they carrying shipments of maize, cement, and even a tractor, they were also carrying an estimate of around 300 to 400 people, around 4 times the reported maximum capacity of the vessel. Little did the unsuspecting travellers know that this routine voyage would soon turn into a harrowing tale of tragedy. As the beautifully sunny port of Yukara finally came into view, the ferry laden with passengers and cargo came into dock. However, at this time, the captain that was steering the vessel was completely engrossed in his mobile phone, oblivious to the impending disaster. Passengers pleaded for his attention, urging for him to focus on the wheel, but he completely ignored them and focused on his phone call. As he was talking on his phone, he came into port and then suddenly realised that the ship was on the completely wrong side. To avoid docking at the wrong side, 50 metres away from the dock, the helmsman made a sudden sharp turn. Panic gripped the ferry as it listed to one side. In a cruel twist of fate, it then lurched to the other side, plunging into the depths of Lake Victoria, taking everyone and everything with it. People stood by the dock and watched the calamity unfold. Tragically, only a handful of fortunate souls managed to escape the sinking ship, swimming desperately to the safety of the shores. Inside the boat, it was an absolute nightmare. Many people were actually in a massive cabin in the center of the ship, and when it overturned, there was no way to escape. Some people were trapped in their rooms with a corridor of dead floating passengers between them and salvation. Over the next few days, many remained trapped in their rooms. One survivor named Hamed described the horror of being trapped in an air pocket. He was floating in the pitch black cold water with dead floating all around. Here he prayed he would be found. However, hours turned into days and there was no sign of rescue. He could hear bangs and noises coming from outside, but they couldn't hear him. He screamed into the void until he lost his voice. He remained here for 40 hours with no food or water before divers finally found him. 5 days later, the boat was overturned and the official death toll was announced. The tragedy had taken the lives of 228 people, and orphaned over 400 children, a truly heart-wrenching outcome. News of the tragedy spread like wildfire, soon reaching the President John Magufuli. In a somber address to the nation, he revealed the grim truth of the incident. A train captain was not present, and to make it worse, the individual in charge was ill-prepared for the responsibility. With this, a 4-day period of mourning was announced, and the president ordered the arrest of the ferry's management, holding them directly responsible for gross negligence and intentionally overloading the vessel. Now, this claustrophobic story begins on the southwest coast of Italy on Sunday, the 1st of July, 2012. On that bright summer morning, 8 divers from a local amateur diving school made their way to the Salinero Gulf, the tourist part of Palinuro, located a few miles south of Naples. That day, they were planning to head into and explore the Grotto Rosso underwater cave system, also known as Blood Grotto. Now, while the name does sound a bit scary, Blood Grotto actually got its name from its unique red etched walls, a phenomenon caused by bacteria growth. However, despite its name, it's actually a very easy dive, apparently. The cave itself is around 100 meters in length, and its main passageway leads straight through to the other side. While there are off branches that lead to nowhere, it's pretty obvious that you're going in the wrong direction. So for these reasons, it's a go-to cave for beginners and experts alike. Determined to explore that day, the group of 8 tourists from across the globe gathered by the entrance. Here they donned their wetsuits and their air tanks, and armed with 45 minutes of air, the group waded into the cold depths. And just like that, they were diving, admiring the blood-red walls of the cave. It was truly breathtaking. Now, it's worth noting that because it was considered an easy cave, there's no cave lines or guidelines or any lifelines to guide the way. You're really relying on your vision to get you through this. Around 20 minutes later, the dive was going as expected. This is when they came to the final stretch of the dive. As the group of 8 silently glided through the water, all of a sudden, one of the newbies' fins caught the ground, causing silt to engulf the passage. Within a second, a peaceful dive turned into complete chaos. With the lack of visibility, everyone, even the guide, started to panic. In the darkness, the guide managed to see a light, and with this, he grabbed as many as he could and he started swimming to the surface. However, when he resurfaced, he did a head count and 4 people were missing. The guide then resubmerged into the salty passage to look for them, but this is when his air ran out too, forcing him to return to the surface. Below the water, a nightmare unfolded. The 4 lost divers continued on a downward trajectory, believing that they were heading towards the exit. They swam to their doom. They continued through the darkness, just hoping that they were going in the right direction. However, when the silt cleared, they now found themselves in a small passage, staring towards a dead end. They must have known there was now no chance to get back to the surface before their air ran out. There was no chance of survival. A fun diving trip had cost them their lives. The remainder of the group waited anxiously at the surface as the recovery teams waded in. About an hour after entering, the search teams discovered the 4 bodies drifting lifeless in the doomed passage. This tale goes to show that even if a cave is marked as safe, cave diving into any flooded cave, it isn't safe. However, if they had used any number of the cave diving safety measures, such as the guide ropes, this would have likely never happened, and they would have most likely survived a terrible fate. This entry, rather than being a tragedy in itself, serves as a stark reminder of the brutal power of the ocean. On the cold, cloudy evening of Monday, February the 4th, 2016, a powerful storm approached the northwest region of France, casting dark clouds over the area and unleashing a drizzle of rain. At around 7 PM, a remarkable video was recorded. featuring a man named Oliver wearing a green coat, standing by the furious and somber sea. You can see by the video that the weather was far from suitable for a swim, and as you can see, the atmosphere seemed almost devoid of colour, resembling a black and white film. Wind speeds that day reached 86 miles an hour, propelling waves that soared to nearly 5 meters in height. As the video plays, it captures the presence of two friends standing by the crashing waves, marveling at the ferocious beauty of them. Meanwhile, an elderly couple, a 75-year-old man, along with his 76-year-old wife, passed by them, heading towards the approaching waves. As the couple strolled closer to the shoreline, the cameraman verbally alerted them to the imminent danger, exclaiming, "Look out, it's coming for you." At first, the couple failed to grasp the gravity of the situation until the wave struck. Now laid on her back, she screamed for help. However, she remained motionless and let the powerful current carry her further and further away. As she drifted away, Oliver and her husband desperately tried to grab her, but she slipped through their fingers at every opportunity and drifted out even farther. Despite the husband being a pensioner too, he valiantly risked his life to save his beloved wife, fearlessly wading into the raging waves, staring death straight in the face. Miraculously, amidst the relentless onslaught of the waves, the woman amazingly swept past her husband, and he just about managed to grab her hand. They now both found themselves in the same perilous predicament. Tossed about by the strong waves, their grip with each other was their only solace, praying for survival. The cameraman apparently had a disability, so he could do nothing but watch as a nightmare unfolded before his eyes. Recognizing the urgent need for a hero, Oliver summoned the courage and took a deep breath. He waited for the perfect moment to intervene. As the waves carefully drifted out, he rushed towards the two and firmly grasped on both their hands. As they crawled towards land on their hands and knees, each wave threatened to wash them back out. At one point, all three were hit by a wave and were completely submerged. However, when the wave subsided, Oliver was still there. He led them to the end of the beach and ensured their safety. The elderly couple was taken to hospital, where their condition remained stable until their release the following day. Against all odds, they had miraculously escaped with no broken bones or injuries, defying the treacherous forces that threatened to take their lives. This story is a brutal reminder of the power of the ocean, and the fact that it can strike seemingly out of nowhere. A simple trip to the seafront almost ended in tragedy. This disaster unfolded on January 13th, 2012, at the port of, and excuse my pronunciation, Civitavecchia, near Rome, Italy. On that evening, the renowned Costa Concordia embarked on a 7-day voyage with approximately 3,229 passengers from 60 different countries, along with 1,023 crew members. Now, you're probably already aware because this is quite a famous story, but I just had to include it. The Costa Concordia launched in June of 2006, and it was one of Italy's largest ships, costing a staggering £362 million, or around 570 million US dollars, weighing 114,000 tons and boasting a length comparable to the Titanic, but twice the width. It was an immense ocean liner. On that cold January evening, as the passengers enjoyed their dinner and settled in for the night, at around 7 p.m, the ship set off on its planned route. At approximately 9:30 p.m, the captain, Francesco, decided that they would take a sail-by past the nearby island of Giulio. As the ship came within 300 meters of the island, the captain noticed protruding rocks straight ahead. Despite attempting to avoid a collision, it was too late. The rocks struck the ship, creating a 50-meter or around 160-foot gash on the port side of the hull. This caused immediate flooding. Within 5 minutes, water had flooded the engine room, cutting off the ship's power and plunging it into darkness. Panic ensued among the passengers. Alarms began ringing at 9:45 p.m, and the crew desperately worked to address the problem. However, just 5 minutes later, the ship started to list. Passengers hurried through the dimly lit corridors to retrieve their life jackets, while the captain tried desperately to steer the ship towards the shore. By sheer luck, the ship drifted backwards and grounded itself near the shore of the island. Here, it violently tipped onto its starboard side and settled on a rocky underwater ledge. This is when the abandoned ship light illuminated. Now, despite being urged to stay by several crew members, literally swearing at him, telling him to stay and look for survivors, the captain, Francesco, and his first mate abandoned the ship, leaving the crew and the guests for dead.
Guardi, Schettino, che lei si è salvato forse dal mare, ma io la porto veramente molto male, faccio passare l'anima di guai. Vada a bordo. Sto qua per coordinare i soccorsi. Che sta coordinando lì? Vada a bordo, mi coordini i soccorsi da bordo. Lei si rifiuta? No, non mi sto rifiutando. Lei mi sta rifiutando di andare a bordo, comandante? No, sto andando. E mi dica qual è il motivo per cui non ci va. Sto andando perché ci sta l'altra lancia che si è fermata. Lei vada a bordo, è un ordine. Lei non deve fare altre valutazioni. Lei ha dichiarato l'abbandono nave. Adesso comando io. Lei vada a bordo. È chiaro? Sto andando a bordo. Vada. Mi chiami immediatamente da bordo. C'è il mio aerosoccorritore lì. Dove sta il tuo soccorritore? Il mio soccorritore sta a prua. Avanti. Ci sono già dei cadaveri, Schettino. Avanti. Quanti cadaveri ci sono? Non lo so, uno l'ho sentito. Me lo devi dire lei quanti ce ne sono, Cristo! Ma ti rende conto che è buio e che qua non vediamo nulla? E che vuole tornare a casa, Schettino? È buio, vuole tornare a casa? Salga sulla prua della nave tramite la biscagina e mi dica cosa si può fare, quante persone ci sono e che bisogno hanno. Ora!
Amidst the ensuing chaos, lifeboats were lowered into the water, but confusion reigned as the staff struggled to handle the situation. Imagine the terror of being on a dream cruise, perhaps with your family or children, and then you're suddenly plunged into darkness as rooms and corridors filled with cold water. Passengers were thrown about as the ship swayed, unaware of the full extent of the disaster outside. It must have been a terrifying experience. As the ship slowly sank, the Coast Guard mobilised rescue boats and helicopters, and thousands lined up to get into lifeboats on the side of the ship. The evacuation process lasted around 6 hours. However, by sunrise the next morning, 10 people had died, leaving 22 still missing, foreshadowing the death of 32 people. This death toll makes it Italy's worst maritime disaster since World War II. The focus then shifted to determining responsibility, determining who was to blame. It soon became evident that the captain, Francesco Schettino, was primarily at fault. He should have never brought the ship so close to the island. He was soon arrested and placed under house arrest, pending his court date. In the meantime, he made public statements deflecting blame onto everyone but himself. Francesco, along with 5 other employees, including the helmsman, faced charges of manslaughter and causing a maritime accident and abandoning the ship. When trying to explain his abandonment of the ship, he said that he accidentally stumbled into a lifeboat and didn't actually intend to abandon ship. However, this was refuted by video footage shown in court. It depicted him calmly entering a lifeboat as panic engulfed the vessel. This terrible excuse infuriated the families of the dead. While the other employees received lighter prison sentences, ranging from 18 months to 2 years, Francesco was sentenced to a hefty 16 years in prison, 10 for manslaughter, 5 for wrecking a ship, and 1 year for abandoning it. 3 years later, the boat was turned back on its right side and towed to the port of Genoa, where here it was gradually dismantled. Horribly, the body of one of the crew members was recovered more than 2.5 years after the ship's salvage and scrapping. On the 8th of June, 2023, a 23-year-old man named Vladimir Popov, along with his girlfriend and his father, embarked on a long-awaited family vacation to the famous Egyptian Red Sea resort of Hurghada. That day, they went to the beach resort to relax. The allure of the white sandy beaches and the crystal clear blue waters was just irresistible. Now, this beach is known as a safe beach, with people swimming with boats and yachts all around. As the sun kissed their skin and the gentle waves beckoned, Vladimir and his father, Yuri, along with his girlfriend, surrounded by fellow tourists, eagerly dipped into the refreshing sea. They enjoyed the waves as they crashed over them. They were having the time of their lives. However, within just minutes, what started as a joyous occasion quickly spiraled into a heart-wrenching nightmare. Within an instant, a 10-foot tiger shark emerged from the depths. Everyone saw it, and everyone rushed out of the water. However, Vladimir was swimming out further than most. While everyone was on the beach, they could do nothing but watch him struggle. I won't show the full video, but it shows Yuri, Vladimir's father, helplessly watching as the predator encircled his son. Holidaymakers scrambled from the water and called out to Vladimir to swim away from the shark before it got to him. They shouted, "Quick, swim away, quick, there's a shark." He swam as fast as he possibly could, but it was too late. The last thing he said was, "Papa, save me," before he was violently dragged under the water. Within seconds, the once tranquil sea turned to a crimson red. The angry shark thrashed about in the water, ripping and tearing Vladimir to pieces, right in front of his girlfriend and his father. His screams eventually faded out, leaving a profound silence. After the commotion, the shark toyed with Vladimir's lifeless body for what felt like an eternity. After this incident, the local community sought retribution for Vladimir's death. With the fact that there had been multiple shark attacks in this area over the last few years, they found it and subjected it to a brutal public execution. They whacked it with sticks and rocks until it died, which, to be honest, I don't think is fair. The shark was just doing what he does naturally, and he doesn't deserve to die for that. But I'm interested in your thoughts below. Yuri, Vladimir's father, is still grappling with the unimaginable loss. He shared his heartbreak with social media, saying, "We went to the beach to relax. My son was attacked by a shark. It all happened within seconds," recounting that the sheer brutality of the incident left him feeling helpless. He said, and I quote, "What kind of help can you give? This meat grinder happened within 20 seconds. He was just dragged under the water." The captured shark, now a symbol of tragedy, was hauled into a van. And in a bizarre twist to the story, museum specialists in Egypt decided to mummify the shark so that the predator can be put on display in a local museum. I'm not sure that I'd even want to see this shark in a museum, knowing that it tore an innocent person to pieces. But as always, I'm interested in hearing your thoughts below. But that is the end of the video. May all the people who lost their lives rest in peace. Vladimir being eaten right in front of his father was just totally brutal. But I don't think the shark should have paid the price for this, and it definitely shouldn't be in a museum. As well as the video of the couple being swept away just goes to show how easy it can be for the sea to take your life. It really reminds you that we're tiny in comparison to the strength and the vastness of the sea, and that we should respect it or succumb to it. But I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.